Hello, Gabby.
Hey Mitzi, hey.
Let me just see if Charmin did send me any notes. Give me 1 second here. Yeah,
Your host, Charmin Prince, and with me today is our other host, Mitzi. And we have a guest. But before we get into today's episode, just join me in a minute of grounding. If you can, just close your eyes. Forget about the to do list. Forget about all that happened this morning and all that you have to do for dinner. And just take a deep breath in and hold that breath for a moment and just exhale and exhale everything that does not serve you for this moment. And then take another deep breath in and let go of the tension, the stress, the anxiety that this day brought you, and just let go and be at peace with yourself for the next 30 or 45 minutes as you join us in this episode. Thank you for joining us. And as we come back, over to you, Misty, as you introduce our guests.
wonderful. Well, it is my great pleasure to introduce Gabby Bartow today. And she is all about helping you manifest the life that you want and focuses specifically on two primary areas, one being wealth, which obviously is on a lot of people's mind, and the other being health and diet and losing weight, which again is also on a lot of people's minds. So I think that it's going to be really interesting. I had the pleasure of meeting Gabby at a networking meeting, and I happened to have won a session with her. So I got to experience a one-on-one session about, getting rid of some of my money blocks. And then I was so impressed with the experience that I decided to join one of her group programs where she has, a small group of people who kind of work through the process together and go through it. So I'm going to let Gabby tell you a little bit more about herself and her process, and then we will ask her some questions. And I think you guys are going to love this. Okay, Gabby, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mitzi. Thank you. So, as you said, my name is Gabby Bartow. I'm calling in from Hungary, hence the accent. So please apologize for me. I try to speak as best English as I can. I was actually born and raised in Ukraine. And from my early life, what I've learned with money, that, money is always short, it's never enough. So what my parents taught me how to save money. And, I'm very grateful for the lesson to them. But then also I ended up in a situation where I was like, if I spent money, it was like, pulling my teeth. So I was like, it's not going well. Something is off here. So this is the point when I looked into this, manifesting stuff, and I realized something is wrong, because I have so much fears around spending money that it's not going to be fun for me. I had money, but it was like all about fear. So I looked into more, and I realized that, also started working with people, that people have three main, blocks around money. And, I also had my share. So the first one is all about getting money in, which is like going into the flow. And for some people, this is blocked. This is not working well. So they just have this stagnation. For other people, what they have a problem with, they have a challenge with keeping money, putting it in the pocket or into investment. They would spend it all the time. And for some people, they have a problem that, they are not keeping it, but they are immediately spending it. And all of them are a challenge. So in order for you to be a rock star with money manifestation, what you want to have is have a beautiful flow of money and business coming in. You also want to enjoy keeping certain amount of it, 10%, 20, 30, depending on what your goal is, but also having gratitude and joy spending the rest of it. Okay. And once I've done it, I was able to transform my life, leaving my job. I was a German teacher before, and I was able to transition fully into my business and embracing this flow and getting, clients, money, business, and also manifesting the life that I already have, which I'm very grateful for.
Awesome. Awesome. So tell me a little bit about the process of how you work with someone, and the steps that you take them through to help them achieve this.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a good question. So maybe you have heard that we all have chakras, or you can call them energy centers. Some people can see this. I don't see them physically, but I can sense it. I can read about their energy centers. And the centers should be working in an ideal case like magnets. If they are working nicely and well, they should be like, getting to you money or, people and clients. But very often these centers are blocked, like something is going on. They are not totally closed, these energy centers, but they have some blocks. And there are 7 main centers in our system, chakra centers. And each of them have a specific money blueprint or a money topic. So, for example, the root chakra's main topic to get money consistently and to create a money flow where you feel stable and safe. Okay. So if for some people this chakra is blocked, they don't have this consistent flow, and they always have this feeling of instability that, they are not safe around money. But also if we are going up, for example, the 3rd chakra is all about, having personal power. And also it's about, looking at money as power. And very often we have a problem with power. So therefore we are basically, not using our power because it's seen as bad or something. And, this means that this chakra is then blocked. So what I do in my sessions, either one-to-one or group, we go through each of the chakra centers, and then there is a specific money block connected to it. And then I can tap into, see and read it, and then transform it into a higher flow. And when you can do this consistently, magic is happening. Magic can already happen one time, so the results are wonderful, but, we want to shift into a new identity. And by new identity, I mean you are not just happy and grateful when things are good, but you're also happy and grateful when things are challenging, and you have a strong, deep faith that things will turn out for you at the end. It's just not the end yet.
Interesting. So one of the things that I've been experiencing as I've been going through this process with you is you sort of talk about how your previous generations and sort of how all of that can be impacting us and our wounds from childhood, but not just our wounds, but things that our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents dealt with, and how it travels through the genetic line and affects us. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect of things?
Yeah, sure. That's a very good question. And this is mainly connected to the first chakra, to the root chakra. And once you sort this out, things are going well for you. But the first chakra is all about, connecting to your generational line and, really seeing into or tapping into what did you bring from your generations. And there is a new science, it's called epigenetics. And I think they have proven that people are carrying up until even 11 generational trauma around money. And, like when you think about 11 generations back, there's lots of shit has happened. Sorry for my language. But, like we carry so many things. And once you tap into it and clear, then you have this beautiful flow that your ancestors are supporting you and you can go on. But generally speaking, in generational line, there are two main patterns that are troubling people. One main pattern is all about poverty, like never having enough. And then the people are, they have received it and they repeat it. Maybe not that they don't have enough, because most people would have enough, but they are repeating this stagnation. So poverty is not just about not having enough, it's also about stagnation. So they will have the stagnation. The other pattern that people are having, that maybe somebody in their family line has experienced big wealth, but then something happened to this big wealth, maybe a cheating, or somebody took the money away, or they were killed, who knows what. So subconsciously, there is a danger connected to big wealth. And that, again, programs you to be playing small and being in stagnation. And some people have a mixture of both, like maybe from the father, the poverty comes, from the mother, this. And then we basically need to tap into almost like old generational line and then see what's there.
So can you give us some examples of, some things that have happened for some of your clients, like what some of their blocks might have been, and what happened after going through the process? Just maybe give us some examples of things.
Yeah, well, I can give examples of results very quickly, but I need to remember the stories, which I usually forget. But when we tap into, so first of all, how we can get quick results is the following. So in any block, no matter money or health, we store the blocks in different places. And for you to get like quick results or breakthrough, you want to tap into all of those layers. Okay, so for example, with money, some of the blocks are coming from the family. Some of them are coming from your previous life or previous lives. Some of them you received in childhood. Some of them are connected to your school years with your school teachers. Some of them are in your body physically, like maybe in your bones or like physically there. Some of them are in the energy field, like in the chakras or the meridian system. So, and some of them, there are lots of them in your mind. The mind has lots of blocks as well. So in order to have quick results, you want to tap into most of the layers pretty quickly. And that has like breakthroughs are happening. So when I work with people, two main things are happening. First, they usually have like a big relief, a feeling of like, some people tell me, Gabby, it feels like I've lost weight. Or somebody tells me, it feels like I am getting taller, or I became taller. So they have this instant relief. But also on the result side, like magic really happens. So they tell me that money starts chasing them. One of my clients told me that there was a guy who owed him money. I think he owed him like $14,000. It's Canadian dollars. And it was like for 5 years. And like no matter how many times he was asking that, he could not pay it back. And after the transformation, the guy just, paid the money, the full amount. And he was like, yeah, I can't believe it. And there is another story with the same, death that somebody owed this time a lady, and it was like a death or like owning money for 15 years. And then people are, paid back immediately after the transformation. But with the question of stories, I'm sorry, Mitzi, I usually forget the stories very quickly. The main thing is that money actually vibrates on a very high level. Money vibrates on like in frequencies, 500, and in terms of like energy levels, it's a very high frequency. But people are vibrating mostly in a lower frequency. They vibrate in the frequency of disappointment and frustration, so that there is no match. And most of the stories are all about why the people are in this low frequency and how can we help them to shift in this high frequency. And when we shift in the high frequency, it's not about, like just smiling and just having this positivity, which it's also about this, but embracing it full body-wise as well, like radiating, because this is when you can get quick results.
So how do you change the energy level that you're resonating at? As you can see, my cat loves manifesting. Every time we're talking about manifesting, my cat shows up.
Yeah. I love your cat.
He really wants to manifest something. I'm not sure what, but he definitely wants to manifest. But how, if you're saying that most people are at a low level and money resonates at a high level, so how do you shift where you're resonating?
The shifting comes pretty easy, and this is because it's easy. For some people, it's hard to believe in the beginning, but the shifting of frequencies comes from the quantum science. So in quantum physics, there is like what people or the scientists, what they have observed that once you are observing something, whether it's like a molecule or atom or a person or an energy, it is shifting immediately or changing immediately based on the intention of the observer. So in this case, me and my clients, we are the observers. And the energies are basically something that we are observing, like what's going on, what is the block. And the minute we are observing, I can see how this is changing into like a nicer frequency, because once you see the stuff, it's losing the power, so that we can, step into like a positive power where there is more freedom.
So if I understand you correctly, part of why the process works is because whenever we sort of self-explore and we're looking at something that we know is an issue for us, that in and of itself, we're becoming more aware and we're looking at it, and it sort of opens it up to improve. And then you go through a process to help, what's the word I'm looking for, accelerate that process.
Yeah, exactly, Mitzi. You got it very well. The only challenge is that some people are not able to look into the subconscious because, first of all, some people don't know that they have a subconscious. And second of all, they are not, it's very hard to look into what's going on. So this is where I come in, or maybe other people as well, where they can tap into this energy field and read the blocks. And once I read it to them or tell them what's going on, they usually tell me, yeah, you are right, Gabby. I feel you are totally right. But by themselves, they're not always able to, identify them.
Gotcha. Charmaine, do you have any questions that have popped up thus far that you wanted to ask?
I have quite a few, Gabby. You mentioned the environment, you mentioned social, you mentioned psychological, you mentioned physical blockage or stagnation. And let's say, for example, I am your client and I have all of those blockages, and I'm unaware, or I might be aware that I'm having difficulties, maybe financially. How do you work with me?
So you're asking, how do I see your blocks, or how do I tap into it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so So there is a new modality that was created in Hungary. And in this new modality, I have two helps that I use. First of all, there is like a tool. It's like a physical tool on iPod where there are certain words and sentences written. And I also have a pendulum. And I simply just go into this tool and I'm asking, what's going on with Charmin? Where are the blocks? And in this way, I can bypass the conscious mind and the ego, because the ego and the conscious mind usually try to make things look nicer. That's, the way they work. And then I can communicate directly with your higher self or with your whoever, how you call it, and then just tap into what's going on in the blocks.
Okay.
It's hard to, imagine maybe first, but I have a YouTube videos where I have this, there's a free session I do with a lady, and then I explain it a bit more. And I always have this free session where people can see and experience how it works.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Charmin, for good question.
What would you say are the most, well, I don't want to say most common, but what are some of the common blocks that people have? And I know, for example, in going through the process, you've given me mantras, sayings to sort of go over to kind of help, I guess, lock in the transformation. And it's interesting because I was already doing mantras and stuff like that for myself. And then I've sort of added in some new ones as we've been going through the process. But maybe sort of talk a little bit to that part.
Yes. So the main blocks, the typical blocks, are definitely connected to family, but not just to family, but also to the tribe where you are coming from. So, for example, maybe even if you are living in Canada, but if you were born somewhere else where there is like a challenging money situation, then you are carrying this tribe energy as well. That's a very typical one. And also typical ones are about, money connected to power. And then also having this fear that once I have more money, I will misuse it. Or maybe you have seen, or people see others, misusing power and money and then saying, no, thank you, I don't want that. So these are the typical ones. But what I see with my people that I work with, we all have some of them, in certain extent. And affirmations are a great way to, work with them a little bit deeper. But for affirmations, what's very important that first you need to go into alignment with affirmation, because very often if for example, if I give you an affirmation, I am very wealthy, and then you would start saying it, your subconscious mind would say, no, you are totally crazy. Look at your bank account. You're not wealthy at all. In this way, the affirmation is actually causing more frustration than more good. So first, you need to go into this alignment where you can, maybe clear some of the frustration and go into fully believing what you are saying. Because if only like part of you believes it, but the subconscious or somebody else does not believe it, then it's a challenge. So I also have a free process for that. I can share later on in the comment field or somewhere where people can look into work with affirmation and put the affirmation into alignment to make sure that they truly believe what they say.
Gotcha. So it's very much, if I'm understanding you correctly, there is, what happens is, we want to, for example, say, okay, I am happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? But if in the back of your mind you've got going, you're not, like, if you were, then right. So you have to figure out how to, and you help the person go through the process of deleting that negative subconscious thing that's been stirring around in their mind forever, so that when they're saying their mantra on a regular basis, they're really feeling it internally and making it part of them, and they're not having that internal fight with themselves where their subconscious is, being the naysayer. Is that
exactly? Yeah. Yeah, very much so. So, for example, if you would be repeating, I am successful at everything I touch, But in the back of your mind, maybe you have a voice where your father or whoever told you that, hey, you're never going to be successful, and this voice is still active, then the affirmation is not so useful. So the first step is always into, quieting the voices, or putting the voices into alignment, and speaking from this alignment.
So it's kind of like, you're trying to climb a ladder, and initially there's probably somebody holding on to your feet while you're trying to climb the ladder. And then when you sort of clear whatever that blockage is, all of a sudden now your feet are free, so you can climb the ladder much faster because you don't have something weighing you down.
Very good example. Thank you, Mitzi. Yeah, I like this visual.
Okay. I was trying to find these things. Now talk a little bit about the other side. We've talked a little bit about the money side. Talk about the weight loss and health side of things, because I would imagine there's probably some similar things and there's probably some different things. And I haven't explored this particular area with you at all. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so in the weight loss industry, I'm planning to bring some revolution into it, because I am very tired that when we think about weight loss, the most common thing is eat less and do exercise. And, like eating less is, okay, like sometimes we are overeating. Exercise is wonderful, but it's almost like if we were like machines. Like this advice is, don't look at us as an energetical beings. So overweight always has an energetical, psychological, generational, whatever side as well, that we are missing from the story, And I have so many clients that tell me, Gabby, I'm eating so little, but I'm still not losing weight. What's going on? Okay. Because, for some people, it's about, eating less, but like there are lots of people who are not eating too much, but they're still not able to lose weight. So what my revolution is about, to look at us as energetical beings, and of course, do exercise, eat well, but also look at this inner work, look at this, inner blocks. And there are so many, around weight. So weight usually is about protection. And very often women would experience maybe, some kind of trauma or mistreat around, with men or with somebody else. And then as a result, they gain weight. Yeah. So for example, I had a client and she started a new job, and she said, Gabby, in my new job, all the men were flirting with me, like everybody liked me too much, a little bit. And she said, I did not know how to protect myself. So at the end, she ended up gaining like 10 kilograms in this, workplace. So when I started working with her, she was like telling me right away, Gabby, I need to, get this energy, how to stand up for myself and say no, because otherwise the kilograms are not going to go away. So big part is about, protection, and also releasing stuff from the past or from generations as well. So I believe up until we are not doing the inner work, the weight is either not going to go away, or if it's going to go away, it will come back. And I believe this is why we have so many yo-yo dieting, where you lose some and it comes back, because you are not shifting from the inside. And this is the message I want to get across, that, you need to look why this is in your body. Why do you have the extra weight? And the other important piece is to really get into a good friendship with our bodies, because, the bodies have so much love. Our bodies have so much love for us. And we often very just criticize it, or we are always discontent with our bodies, And I think it's about time to change that, because, your body is your best friend, especially for this lifetime, there is no chance changing it. So the minute you start going into cooperation with your body and start listening to it, like in a very deep level, then your body is willing to do things that you are asking for. And right now we misuse it very often.
So is the process that you take somebody through on the weight loss journey similar to the money manifesting one, where there is like it's an 8-week program and you work on each chakra 1 week and but specifically centered around the aspect of weight?
Yes, it's actually very similar. So, for example, when we talk about the root chakra, if you are coming from the family line where your ancestors have been overweight, then you are very likely to repeat it. But also, if in your ancestral line, being thin meant that you are sick or you are poor or you are dying, because, that could also happen, that somebody was not having enough money and then they were like starving and they were very slim, then your subconscious again sends the message, no, don't lose weight because it's not good. Then again, you have the block. So once you tap into it and see what generational trauma is your body carrying, then you can go into like an easier process of losing weight.
Now, you've mentioned a couple of times of tapping into it, and I'm just wondering, do you mean that literally as well? Because I know that there are some modalities or some people that work with tapping as part of their process. Is that something that is part of this process as well?
I don't use it in my process. By tapping in, I literally mean, like listening, tuning into yourself and see what's coming up. But tapping, I've tried it. It's also a wonderful way of doing it. It helps to calm stress as well. But for me, I simply, in my process, I do this tapping in for my clients, myself, I help them to see what's going on. But I'm hoping that we will go into like an era or a time where we are so connected with ourselves that we can see clearly what's going on, because we are so much disconnected lately that, it's hard to get the message.
Gotcha. Charmin, do you have
what are some tips to help our listeners tap into themselves? Because I see a correlation between the health and the wealth, because they both have psychological impacts that causes the stagnation, either gaining weight or not having enough money or an understanding of money.
Sure. Yeah. So sorry, what was the beginning of the question? I forgot the first part.
What are some tips to help our listeners?
Tips, okay. So first of all, what I would advise, it's going to be very, very challenging, okay? So I'm asking you to get naked and go in front of the mirror. And if you can, look at yourself in the mirror with love and appreciation, then you are very likely to having a good relationship with your body. And if you are not able to look at your body with love and appreciation, then step number one or tip number one is listen, get into a good relationship with your body, like almost like she's your best friend. And, try to forgive or, release the past and go into like a good cooperation. That's tip number one. Tip number two is, once you have like a good communication with your body, like a cooperation, you can ask your body, or even you can ask your fat cells, what's the reason this fat is stored on your body? Well, like what's the, behind logic? And what can you do to support your body in releasing it, okay? And if you have a very good connection, then the body will start talking to you. And the only challenging part is that the body doesn't have this language that we have. The body has a different language. So we all almost like need to learn the language that the body talks in.
Interesting.
Thank you for responding for those tips. Secondly, that's the physical aspect. Well, how do we address the psychological aspect? Because you mentioned the psychological aspect for both the wealth and both the health. So what are some tips for us to tap into that, the psychological aspect that holds us or prevents us from losing the weight and prevents us from having a healthy relationship with money?
Mm-hmm. So two things maybe here as well. So first of all, usually around weight loss, there is a lot of energy around disappointment. So people have tried and failed over and over and over. So number one would be to get out of this disappointment energy and tap into the energy of, maybe acceptance or contentment, and do it, on a consistent basis. And the other thing is, start working on the mind, because very often around money and also weight loss, there's lots of negative thoughts, especially around, weight loss as well, that, it's not going to work. I am loser. It's always coming back. It's never working. And try to master those thoughts so that the thoughts are not so negative, but you can go into like a positive brainwave state where you have more hope that things are working out for you.
So do you use or recommend like meditation as part of your process? Is that something that it is, or just sort of doing the mantras or a combination thereof?
Yeah, so in my program, there are three things. So first of all, everything starts with the inner work with me. We work on the energetical blocks. Then the number two is there is like a powerful breathing exercise, because breathing is very powerful around weight loss. And the third part is also about a physical thing, like watching what's going on, what your body is asking you to do on a physical level, because it might be, changing a diet or doing exercise, I don't know, but it's always starting with the inner work, so because very often we start with the outside work. We're like Googling, like what to do, what to eat, but it doesn't come from inside. So once we shift the blocks, once we shift the sabotage, maybe there is a new diet that will find you, or maybe there is a new way that you can, do things on a physical level. So three parts is, inner work, breathing exercises, and also like doing something on a physical level as well. And that's true for money and health. You are going to be a rock star once you meet the inner work and the actions, once you put them together. Very often people are either doing the actions but not the inner work. Some people just do the inner work and they don't like to do actions. But you are going to be a true manifester once you put the both of them together. Because inner work connects to heaven, this is like a higher energy. Actions are very physical. This is like an earth. And once you connect heaven and earth, then you really have heaven on earth.
Let's say a listener is listening to us and they're in their minds, I have done the inner work. I'm doing the action, but there is no manifestation. What do you say to that listener?
Okay, good question. Very good question, Charmaine. So I truly believe that whatever you are truly ready for, or you have truly worked it through, it will appear in your life. So if it's not there yet, then something you are not seeing or people are not seeing is blocking them. So then you either go and ask for help, or you tap into your inner wisdom and ask it, like what else is missing? What am I not seeing? And in some cases, it's, also about waiting and being patient. So you can just listen to your inner wisdom and ask yourself, have I done enough clearing? If the answer is yes, then it's about patience time, like being, allowing and having fun while waiting.
Thank you. Thank you. And this question has, since you started talking about the psychological aspect and the subconscious, what if the blockage is in the unconscious mind and your client has cleared the subconscious, but nothing is happening, nothing is manifesting, and they're doing the inner work, they're doing the actions, and but nothing is happening. Have you ever encountered that? And if so, how did you handle it?
Yes, I have encountered it very rarely, thanks God, but it happens sometimes. And usually what ends up happening in those cases is that, you clear your subconscious, but the mind is somehow reactivating it. Okay, so it's almost like you taking a shower, but then getting dirty again. Somehow the mind is sabotaging it because it's too good to be true. So let me just grab the pattern again and then, using it again.
So how do they go back and break that cycle?
Then in this case, you need to work. In this case, you need to work with the mind, and the mind is a harder part because when you talk about quantum energy and energetical stuff, it's very easy to change because it's in the quantum field. You just change it like this. But the mind is wired to be negative. The mind is trained to look for danger and problems. And we need to consistently work on the mind, maybe with meditation, maybe with my modality, to change it, where by changing, I mean you go into like a different frequency level or different brain state or brain wave level, where you are more in the bliss mode or more in the like a theta brain wave or something like this.
Interesting.
Wow. Interesting indeed.
Wonderful.
You mentioned that the mind, when you mentioned that the mind is negative, I thought about the fight and the flight stage, right? Where you're forever in that hypervigilant state.
Yeah.
But what can you say to someone who is there?
Who is where? Sorry.
Who is in that state where the mind is in control and the mind is negative, and they continue to be in that whirlwind of negativity and poor manifestation.
Yeah. So what then I would advise for these people to, first of all, try to get out of the head and simply like focus into the heart, like literally pulling your focus away from the mind and focusing on heart and love and intuition, which is, more in the heart chakra. And the other thing they can do is like constantly going into like a 30 days of meditation where they are learning how to do the mind. And for example, one of my teachers, he's called Dawson Church. He has a very powerful way of meditation where he goes into how to calm the mind and how to activate positive molecules like oxytocin and, all the good stuff. He has, I think, a free series of, he calls it eco meditation. And he's very good with calming the mind down. And even if the listeners or anybody hits a block, just ask your higher self, like, show me the next step, like bring me the stuff. And the next step is going to be appearing either on Facebook or in Google, or somebody will tell you something, and then, the answer will be there.
Well, as we all know, Facebook's always listening. You start thinking about one thing and all of a sudden, sure enough, it's showing up in your feed like a fiend. So it's definitely that, you look at something on your computer and all of a sudden it's in your Facebook feed.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think universe is also listening. So start tuning into universe as well.
So if people want to get in touch with you and find out a little bit more about this process, how can they go about getting in touch with you, Gabby?
I have all kinds of links, YouTube, on LinkedIn. I will share it with you afterwards, and then they can usually I offer a free session. I offer like a 20-15 minutes of a free session where they can try out and see how I work. I really want to, help people that I can connect with and they can connect with me, because not everybody likes me, and, that's okay. So just, find one of the links and see whether you like it or not.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll have all of that in our show notes. And of course, you can always reach out because, as I said, I've been going through this process. We're on week, I think we finished 6 weeks now. So we've got two more weeks left in the process that I'm going through. And I can honestly say that I have felt some things shifting, and I feel there's still some things there that are needing to be dealt with, but we're getting there.
Yeah, that's okay. So Mitzi, the process you're going through, I have done for myself 4 times. So there is always something coming up. It's like, has some layers, and that's okay. We're always on the way.
So that's an interesting thing. So it's not a one and done kind of thing. This is something that you may find that, you go through and you clear and you can get to a certain level, and then you may have to circle back and kind of go through the process again because life happens and things go on, and so you can revisit it.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a cool offer for all the clients that are going through the process with me. If they want to repeat it, they can repeat it for half price, but getting different results. They would get different depth out of the sessions because, there are more layers to it.
Well, I mean, that's very true, right? If you read a book or you watch a movie or do anything, and then you go back and you read that same book again a few years later or watch that same movie, you will pick up different things. One, because part of you sort of already seen some of the stuff, and two, because you're in a different space and now you catch things that you missed previously, or things resonate with you that didn't resonate with you before because of whatever has happened during that time in between.
Yeah, we only have one negativity coming from school where, repeating something means that you have failed it, this is why you need to repeat. So in this way, we need to, shift it. And it's not about, repeating because you failed it, but it's repeating to master it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I know that this has been really interesting. Sherman, do you have any last minute questions before we wrap it up?
No, thank you. Maybe I do, Gabby. How can one find balance?
You mean balance in life or generally, or what do you mean by
generally? How can you find balance? Because with I'm not too familiar with the chakras, but how can one find balance within themselves so that they can, live the blissful life where manifestation is a daily activity for them?
How do you describe balance for you? Like where you are in peace every day with yourself, or what is it for you?
Where you're comfortable with who you are, you're comfortable with your environment, you're comfortable with your mind, you have balance in your mind, you're not in fight or flight, you're not hypervigilant, you speak well to yourself and others, your gratitude is your way of life, and you enjoy joy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so for more balance, first I would definitely start working with the mind, because the mind can create lots of craziness. And there's another book I can recommend. It's from Eckhart Tolle. Probably you know him, The Power of No, and he talks about a lot of this, how we mess up with our mind. And in terms of like having balance, I would also look at the life areas that you have or we have, and pick the one that's disturbing the most and start working on it. And once you start working on one area, it will affect and improve other areas as well. So it will be like leveling up. And once you figure this one part out, maybe the money part or whatever, you can move on to the next topic and then bring more balance to each of them.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another episode of Transforming Lives podcast panel. We thank you very much for listening and look forward to being with you again next week. Have an awesome week. Okay. Let me just stop the recording here.